So we're still doing grade 12 mathematics paper 1 November 2024. So the question that we're going to be doing today, it's one of the most important questions that you need to always remember. It's question 8. This question always comes in your exams. If you're not going to watch this video, just save it so you can watch it later because you're gonna need it. Or just write a comment or like it so that you can able to reference it back into this question, because this question is definitely gonna come in your exam. What is it going to be learning in this video? Simple. It's going to be learning about differentiation rules of calculus. You'll learn also how to differentiate from first principle, and then also you're going to be learning about the inverse functions and the one-to-one function, how to test the vertical test line, how to test this function is essentially a function or not a function. And that's what you're going to be learning in this video. Boom. Let's get into it. So question 8 says determine this function here, right? You got this very funny looking function, but it's easy to actually do it. I'm going to give you some note first, right? And then we're going to jump into it on how to differentiate this problem here. So let's say you have a function called f, and this is equal to ax power b. Okay. And then if you have to find a derivative or differentiate this function, the derivative of this function is going to be equal to a times b x power b minus 1. And that's what you're going to be doing throughout the whole video, right? Another one that you need to remember is the derivative. Let's say you got, so this number 1, it's number 2. Let's say you got a g of x is equal to just a constant. Now a derivative of a constant is equal to 0. Those are the two main rules that you need to remember, right? If you can remember this, you're going to be able to get, how many marks is this? 18 marks, right? So let's go. I'm going to give you an example, 8.1.1.1, right? So differentiate, you got 3x minus 5x squared. Okay, how do you do this? So you need to find the derivative of 3x. Again, the derivative of 3x is 3 times 1, right? Power x, 1 minus 1, right? And 3 times 1 is 3, and x, 1 minus 1, that is 0, right? So you have 3x power 0. Make sense? And again, how do you do this? You do the same thing, right? That's what you're doing. So what you're going to say is negative 5 times 2. X power 2 minus 1. Make sense? And negative 5 times 2, that is 10. And 2 minus 1, that is 1. So your answer is going to be minus 10 x power 1. Of course, x power 0 is just 1. So it's going to be 3 minus 10 power x minus 10x power 1. And x power 1 is just x. And that's your answer. That is your answer, all right? And it's 2 marks. And this question always come like that. And this is just 2 marks. You get your 2 marks for doing that. And then for 8.1.2, let's go for 8.1.2. So again, you have g of x is equal to 2 over x squared minus 3 x power 7. So I feel like I need to give you some notes. Okay, let me give you some notes. Okay, so if you have 1 over x power a, this could be written as x power minus a. Okay, rule number 1. Rule number 2, if you have a over x power b, this could be written as x power b over a. Okay, so that's what you need to remember this. If it's 1 over x power a, this could be written as x power negative a. Now if you have a square root of x power b, this could be written as b x power b over a. And that's what you're going to be using. You're going to be using this information and this information to answer this question. Okay, so let's get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this off so I can have space. I'm going to go say 8. Let me get blue. So 8.1.2. Okay, so you got g of x is equal to, so this 2 over x power 2, this could be written as 2x minus 2. Does that make sense? Right, because we take x power. If that doesn't make sense, let me know. I'm happy to reload the same question, and happy to check out the same question if you have same question. And then this could be written as, look at it, it's the same as this here. This could be written as x power, what is b? B is 7 over a. A is what? 3. Now it's easy. Now from here, we're just applying this rule here, right? So it's going to be g of x. This could be written as, again, we're applying this rule, is going to say 2 times negative 2 x power negative 2 minus 1, right? So 2 times negative 2, that is negative 4, and negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. And again, for this, it's going to be negative 7 over 3, right? Which is times in by 1, and x power 7 over 3 minus 1. Okay, and in 7 over 3 minus 1, that is basically 7 minus 3 over 3, which is 4 over 3. So your answer is negative 7 over 3 x power 4 over 3. Okay, so let me know. It's getting there. In fact, we're done. That's it. That's your answer. That's basically your answer. And it's 4 marks. So where are you getting your 4 marks from? Of course, you're getting a mark for flipping this and for flipping that. Just 2 marks for just understanding these notes. 2 marks. Okay. And you get a mark for getting a derivative of that, and you're getting a derivative of that. And you get your clean 4 marks. How interesting is that? How interesting is that? All right, let's go to 8.2. Right, so 8.2, it's a very interesting one as well. 8.2. 8.2, now is giving a little bit of a context. Determine the equation of a tangent to fx. Okay, so this gets like very tricky. Now, let's talk about the tangent, right? Let's say you have this is a cubic function. So a cubic function has 2 turning points, and then let's say you have a tangent. Let's call this a tangent line, whatever tangent line this is, and it touches here. Okay, and the tangent line is equal to y is equal to mx plus c, and then your m, that m here is equal to the first derivative of the x value. Let's say this is the x value. Let's call it x1. It's equal to the first derivative of that x value. That's if provided this is f. Okay, so the turning point is equal to the derivative, the first derivative of that x value here. Let's call it x1. Does that make sense? That's the turning point. And then you need to be able to find that turning point yourself. Okay, so that's what you're going to be doing here. Now, if you look at, let me take this picture. Let me take a little bit down here. Perfect. So, if you look at the question that we have here so far, look at it. They say, determine the equation of a tangent. So, they want you to find this equation here of f of, and given this cubic function, when x is equal to 2. So in our case, the x1 is equal to 2. So we are told this is equal to 2. So the gradient of the first derivative of x1 in this case is 2. Make sense? Or x is 2. So now you need to find the gradient first. So the way to find the gradient, again, we say you need to find the first derivative of f of x. Again, you're given f of x is equal to x power 3 minus 4x squared plus 2x plus 3. Now, let's find the derivative. Now, if you can, please just pause this video and find the derivative yourself, and then and verify your answer. Right. So derivative of x power 3, that is 3x power 3 minus 1. And 3 minus 1, that is 2. So it's going to be 3x power 2. Nice. And then the derivative of this is going to be negative 4 times 2x power 2 minus 1. This is equal to negative 8. This is equal to 1. So there's going to be negative 8x power 1. And power 1 is just x. Okay. And then what is the derivative of this? It's going to be what? 2 times 1, x power 1 minus 1. And 1 minus 1, that's 0. And so it's going to be 2 power x. So it's going to be 2 power x power 0. Right? And you know x power 0 is what? It's just 1. Okay. And then what is the derivative of a constant? Remember this note here. Derivative of a constant, well, we have a blue here. So a derivative of a constant is equal to 0. The derivative of a constant is equal to 0. So this is equal to 0. So f of the derivative of this is equal to 3x squared minus 8x plus 2. Right? Why? Because x power 0 is just 1. And you got that 0 over there. And then you're moving. Now, what you need to find is the gradient of this turning point. And the gradient of this tangent is it happens when x is equal to 2, right? So meaning when there's x, when x you put 2. Okay, so the gradient is there. So you can just punch this in your calculator, or you can just do it by head like me. So 3 times 4, that is what? 12. And minus, so let's write it down. This is 3 times 4, that's 12. 8 times 2, that's 16, plus 2, right? So, and then you say 12 plus 2, that's 14. 14 minus 16, that is negative 2. So your gradient is equal to negative 2. Okay. So now that's your gradient. And from here, we need to then find the equation. Now to find the equation, you need to remember this is the formula that you need to use. Y minus y1 is equal to the gradient x minus x1. And remember, in this case, we already have the gradient. The gradient is negative 2x, and we have already x1, which is 2. Now we need to find what is our y1. Now, how do you find y1? Okay, the way you find y1, you need to now see, okay, cool, this is in this function here, right? When x is equal to 2, what is my y? Then that's your y1. When x is equal to 2, what is your y1? So meaning when, remember, you have the function y is equal to x cubed minus 4x squared plus 2x plus 3. This function here, okay? And then y1 will be when, let me not put y like that. This is equal to, just don't want to confuse people, right? So y1 is equal to when x is equal to 2, right? The x1. And so y1 is equal to 2 cubed minus 4, 2 squared plus 2 times 2 plus 3. Right. So what is your y1? Now you can punch this in your calculator if you want to, but you can do the mental exercise with me. It helps. It helps. So 2 times 2 times 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2, that's 8. So you have 8. And 2 times 2 power 2, that's 4. Negative 4 times 4, that's 16. Right? 2 times 2, that is 4 plus 3. Okay? And then from here, you can able to add 8 plus 4, that is 12, plus 3, that is 15. Now 15 minus 16, that is negative 1. So y1 is equal to negative 1. Now, you have y minus 1 is equal to negative 2, x minus 2. Do you see how we maneuvering this? How are you maneuvering? All right, so if y is equal to so what you're doing is removing the bracket, so it's gonna be negative 2x plus 4, because removing the brackets, negative 2x, negative 2 times negative is positive 4. Okay, and then y, let's take the negative one to the side, it's going to be negative 2x plus 4 plus 1. So y is equal to negative 2x plus 5. And that is your answer. This is the equation of a tangent that is passing through this particular cubic function, and when x is equal to 2. So that's basically how you do this question. And this question, Bazalwane, it is always gonna come. It's always gonna come. Always. Huh. As in, let me leave you. Let's go to 8.3. Okay, 8.3. It comes with a lot of O in 8.3. Actually, it's quelling in the highest level. It is quelling at the highest 8.3, right? There's a lot of things going on in 8.3. And I'll tell you this, we don't need all of this information in 8.3, right? So I'm gonna give you new information. In fact, yeah, I will. I'll give you some notes in 8.3. So 8.3.8, jeez, tongue twist. 8.3.1, you are required to determine the derivative of this using what? First principle. And by the way, using what you already know, the derivative of this is equal to what? Negative 6 times 2 x power 2 minus 1. And negative 6 times 2, negative 6 times 2, is what? Negative 12. X power 2 minus 1, that is 1. And this is equal to negative 12. And we are expecting your answer to be negative 12x. But we're going to use what we call first principle. And the formula for first principle is equal to the limit, the derivative of f is equal to the limit when h approaching 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x is equal to h. You know what? This question has 5 marks. And you're not supposed to get this one wrong. Right? Out of all the 5 marks, this is the 5 mark that you need to get it right. Okay. And by the way, this is your first mark. Okay. This is your first mark. So let's go to your second mark. Second mark is to substitute. So where there's the x, you just put x plus h. So you have minus 6x plus h squared minus f of x again is minus 6x squared. I mean, this minus and minus is becoming positive, so it's going to be just positive 6x squared over h. And just some notes, I know you know this. If you don't, I got you. So if you have a plus b squared, this could be written as a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So we're going to do the same thing here, right? Just pause and figure out what's the answer here. Coming with it. So derivative of this. By the way, again, you're getting a mark for this. This is 2 marks already. So this is going to be negative 6x squared, what? Plus 2xh plus h squared plus 6x squared over h. Okay. Coming in with it nicely. So again, what you're doing is removing the brackets. It's going to be this times that, this time that, this time that. So it's going to be negative 6x squared. Negative 6 times 2, that is negative 12xh. Negative 6h squared plus 6x squared minus h. And now you're going to see negative 6 plus 6x squared is equal to 0. So this and this is equal to 0. Right? So what do you have? You have, I'm going to come with nice with it, don't worry. 12xh minus 6h squared over h. Okay. And then you see you have a common factor, which is h. So you can factor that out. If you factor it out, that h and h will cancel. This and that h and that h will cancel. So factor out the common factor. So you factor it out. H on your numerator is going to be negative 12x minus 6 h, because it's h squared over h. And what happened is h and h will cancel. Right. This is going to be negative 12 appearing now. In the limit when h approaching 0, so when h approaching 0, so when this is 0, and negative 6 times 0, that's just 0. So your answer, the final answer, is equal to negative 12x. And it is the same answer that we already done with differentiation rule, just by using first principle. Now, where do you get your other 3 marks? This is, of course, getting a mark for this. And, of course, you're getting a mark for substituting h. So this is 2 more. And then you get a mark for doing one of this here. Yeah, so doing one of this here. Let me give you a mark for that. So that's how you get your 5 marks. All right. We're coming with it. We're coming with it. And let me know if you got questions. I'm happy to go back with it for you, and we do it together. Skawara, don't worry a lot. Just go together, right? And we're gonna do this together. Now it's gonna go a little bit complicated, right? This is one of the complicated ones, but it's easy when you see it. And I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna give you pictures for 8.3.2, and we see it like, okay, why my lecturer didn't tell me that? Because it's that easy, right? So write down how you would restrict the domain of f such that f power negative 1, that is what you call an inverse of f. The inverse of f is a function. Now, how do you know that the inverse of f is a function? You use what you call a vertical test, right? So you have a vertical test. Let me give you notes. Okay, let's say you have a function, this function here. Okay, and then you draw a vertical test. If it touches once, therefore, let's say this is an inverse function, therefore the function of this inverse function is a function. All right, if it touches once. However, let's say you have, this is what you call a vertical test, by the way. Vertical test. Okay, let's say you have maybe this function here. Now you draw a vertical test. How many does a vertical test touch? Let's say this is a inverse. It touches how many times? 2 times. So if it touches 2 times, therefore it is not a function. The function of this inverse function is not a function. Okay, because the vertical test touch this function twice. Now let's find the inverse to answer our question, right? Write down how you restrict the domain you're talking about, x, how you restrict your x such that the inverse function of f is a function. How do you do it? Okay, so how do you do this? So now, with this knowledge of the vertical test, we can able to draw this function here. Now this function, let me draw it for you. This is just like this. Okay, that's how it is. But I can just zoom it up. So this function here is equal to f. Okay, that's your function, and this is equal to negative 6x. right? That's what you have. And however, the inverse of this function, you need to draw it. Let me just extend this a little bit up. Boom. You need to draw a line, straight line. Ooh, maybe that's the one. Straight line. Y is equal to x. That's your straight line. And then it's able to draw inverse. So the inverse of this function, right, is you need to say, okay, cool. If you look at this line here, okay, this line here, the inverse of this line is the mirror image of that line. So that means go this way. That's the inverse of that line. So the inverse of this line is the mirror image. So this is gonna go boom. That's the inverse. Now tell me, using this vertical test, does it touch how many times? It touches one time. And that means this is a function when x is what? What is your x here? Your x is negative. It is a function when x is negative. So that's your answer. X is negative. Or someone else can say, but Percy, look at this. This is not just this is not just when x is less than 0, but also it is possible when x is greater than 0. Now let's look at that. When x is greater than 0, when x is greater than 0, look at this way. Now, how do you draw the inverse function of this? Again, the inverse function of this is the mirror, right? It's a mirror image. When you look at the straight line, you mirror. So if this goes this way, therefore this is gonna go that way. Okay, so that's the mirror image. So that means this is gonna go this is gonna go why am I getting this? It's fine. Let me just. It's fine. This is gonna go this way. Boom. Okay, and that's the inverse of this one here. So now do a vertical test. When x is greater than 0, so when x is greater than 0, when you do a vertical test, how many times does it touch? It touches 1. Therefore, it is a function. So if you have to, so that's basically your answer. So it's either you do this or you do that. Either way, you cannot get it wrong. That means this question, when it comes, you cannot get it wrong. There's no way. Even if you don't understand what I just told you, right? What you need to know is you just write x is greater than 0. If you don't remember that, just remember that x is less than or equal to 0. Either way, you get your answer right. It's one of those funniest questions, right? It's like the lecture's giving you a mark. You need to have a mark here. This is your mark. This is your moment. You shine in this 8.3.2, okay? Yeah. I mean, you can, I'm tempted to show you the inverse of this whole function, right? The inverse of it for whole function is this line plus that line. That's the inverse of this one. This is the inverse if this is the function. Okay. So meaning this is the inverse. And of course, the function itself, this inverse is not a function. Why? Because it touches twice. And that's why they were asking you a question that when this could be a function. It is a function whether if x less than 0 or x greater than 0. One of the two is either fine. You can say this is fine, you can say that is fine. Now let's go 8.3.3. Now 8.3.3 says, that's a very nice question. It says determine this inverse when is negative. Okay, that's your key. Now how do you do that? Now the inverse, so you get y is equal to negative 6x squared. Now to determine the inverse, again, what do we say? We say the inverse is it reflects on the line y is equal to x, so it is y is equal to x. So when y is equal to x, meaning when y is equal to x, so this is interchanging x and y. Okay, and then you make y substitute your formula, then that becomes your inverse. So that becomes your answer. So you have y squared is equal to x over negative 6, which could be written as well, there's 1 over 6x. That's the simplest way of writing this. And then you put the derivative, so the derivative is going to be minus 1 over 6x. Okay, and then what did they say? They say when the inverse is less than 0, so this is going to be just not just plus or minus, but only minus, because we're looking for this particular domain when is less than 0. So this is going to be minus. And that's your answer. And how many marks is this? This is just 3 marks. You get a mark for that, get a mark for interchanging, get a mark for solving for y. And that's how you get your 18 marks. This has been amazing. This has been sensational. I'm loving 8.3, right? Always gonna come. If you find this very interesting, please share this with your friends. Don't keep it with yourself. Save it somewhere so you can able to visit it, and write a comment so that I can see that you're here with me and you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay? And make sure that you hit the notification bell, because I'm uploading every Tuesday and Friday 5 p.m. So you don't miss question 8. Question 7, the next video is question 7. And we're already done question 9, 10, 11, and 12. So check those videos out. For question 7, we're talking about, what is this? Yeah, this is finance. We're talking about finance, right? Most of students, they try to avoid this 14 marks. And it is an easy 14 marks. And it's finance. It is something that you need to know. You need to know the numbers, man. You need to know need to get the back. They always tell you that in math they don't teach you financial literacy, and the lie. They actually do teach you financial literacy, and that's what you're gonna be learning in question 7 in the next video. This is the video. It's dropping on Thursday. And I'll see you into it. Boom.